So, Kim, I want to thank you for deciding to participate and share your words of wisdom during the summit. When I was considering who could I invite to speak here that had a complete spectrum of experience, from television to stand-up comedy to public speaking to authoring books, you've seen all of the alternative stages, and you've done it in a bodacious way, as you like to say. Um, and I was like, no, it would be really cool to hear your perspective of how you transition in and out of um, those different stages, but also how do you captivate the audience and keep their attention in different modalities. So um, I'll let you get into it, but I just want to kind of start off with the origin story for those who may not know you. I know, to me, you were one of my childhood heroes. So, but some people may not know your origin story. So can you bring us up to speed?
Sure. Thank you. And by the way, thank you for inviting me to participate in this. I love the work that you're doing and the platform that you're creating for speakers. And I'm so excited for how it's going to continue to grow and happy to play with you. So there's that. So my origin story is growing up as a kid in the 70s and watching all the great television shows and all the great entertainers, the Carol Burnett's, the Flip Wilson, and I'm not aging myself. I will tell you, I'm in my 60s. I'm 62. Richard Pryor, Bill Cosby, and, all the great storytellers and performers and, Laughing, all these great shows, and not really knowing what that meant because I don't have any other performers in my family, but just knowing that I wanted to be on TV and do that thing where you make people happy. so I remember developing in high school. Uh, uh, I thought that I needed something to win friends and influence people. Because I was a chubby girl, I was so afraid of being teased for being chubby. I thought, well, if I make them laugh with me instead of at me, then I'll get, like I said, win friends, influence people. And it absolutely worked. I ended up being a class president all 4 years, ended up being on the cheering squad and, making people happy and walking down the hallway and being crazy Kim Calls, not knowing that I was developing a skill that I could then use later on. And, the story goes on that I entered into I started modeling, plus size modeling became a big thing, no pun intended. And I entered into a beauty pageant for plus size women. And when they said, what's your talent? And I was like, I don't really have a talent. And so I made up a comedy routine about beauty pageants. And I won first runner up. And not because I had been pretty and poised, but because I had made fun of this thing that we were in. And I realized that night that that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to perform and make people laugh and clap. And I just remember the waves of love coming and hitting me on stage. And it was in that moment that I understood that I had taken a gift, a skill, and a talent I had learned over here in high school trying to make people like me. And I was able to transfer it and put it on stage right here. And I'm sure I was crude and not very good, but good enough to win first runner up. And that was the night that I discovered this is what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. Stand up then led to acting, and acting led to, so much more, becoming a speaker, becoming a published author, becoming a publisher myself. And I just really am a fan of people looking at all the gifts and all the talents and all the genius and all the things that they've gathered throughout the years and using all of it to bring to the stage, to bring to your audience, to help develop the products that you want to do. And I think so many of us are looking outside of ourselves and looking at the landscape of what other people are doing. And I've seen in my life time and time again, if I just use what I've already got and elevate that and, perfect that, then I can't lose. And so that's sort of the origin and the moving through all the things, and also my philosophy that you use the genius you've already got, and that's authentic and what people will really want to hear from you, I think.
What you covered there is really interesting. How you were able to go in and out of different modalities, right? So you went from class president to stage model, pageant girl, to director and writer of a comedy script, to taking it to the stage, to taking it to television. All of it is public performance, right? what enables that ability to morph and to kind of, if you think of it as all public performance, does that make it easier, or do you try to categorize it and say, when I'm doing this, I have to do this differently?
That's a good question, Ron. That's good. I think the common denominator, there's two common denominators from what I'm gathering at this moment. It's part of it is public performance, but the first part of that is the public. I am I realize now that I have learned to become instinctive, or in I tap into my own instincts and my intuition when standing before any audience. And you know how we've all talked before about, the thing that we are is we're subject matter experts. There's things that Ron, and there's things that people who are watching this that that you don't even know that you just do it instinctively, or you've done it because you've been doing it for so long. And so if I were to pull back a little bit, I think that the number one thing is that I love to be connected with the audience. That night that I stood on stage and I felt the waves of love and laughter coming at me, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I need to do, is because I was keenly aware that there was an impact that I could have on this audience. And I chose to use my powers for good. In my case, it's to bring joy and to be inspirational and to exchange love with them in a way. And that then informs the performance. And so if I'm there as a vessel for what I think they may need to hear, or the way that I want to make them feel, or the way I feel that they might need to feel, then it becomes a beautiful marriage. I get to, do a show and get to leave them with something too. And I'll say this, that over the years, the most magical moments, other than standing on stage and people clapping and laughing, and maybe they're standing or maybe they're whatever it is that they do, there's a couple of moments that are magical. I'll say this. It's the moment that you see someone in the audience turn to someone else in agreement of like, oh yeah, that's right. Or, oh, they're clapping and laughing to each other about what you just said. It's just like, oh my God, I've got them now. And in the moments that you have after a show, if you're doing a book signing, or if you're, or if you're greeting your audience in whatever way that you do, whether it's after a comedy show, after a one-person show, which I've done, or after, in the VIP speaking experience, after you've done with the stage, that the meeting planner has you meet with some of the VIPs, for them to greet you or hug you or touch you and go like, what you said really moved, touched, and inspired me. Like, thank you for that thing that you said. This is what stood out for me. Those moments are delicious, and that means, oh, I've done my job. So I don't know if I answered the question.
No, no,
But
no,
it's a
no. You,
it's
you
an
completely answered the question.
it's an exchange. And I think the more speakers understand that there's an exchange, that it's not just a monologue, that it really is a dialogue. The speakers who have moved, touched, and inspired me over the years are the ones who create a way to create a connection to the audience, and have their message be felt instead of and heard.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that authenticity, one of the things that stood out that you said that I really resonated with was, you were always being yourself. And because it's easy to be yourself, you can focus on other people because you're just being yourself. But when you're trying to be someone else, you got to focus on doing that because it's not authentic. So you don't get a chance to focus on that connection with the audience. And I think that's why people love you. It's, it's that thing where it's like, oh, we know somebody like her, right? That's the connection that you want. You're like, oh, I may not know her, but I know somebody just like her, and that's why I like her, right? So I think that's a really big deal. How do you make the transition? And let me explain to you what I mean. Going from a small group, which is like a comedy room, right, to a large stage, which is like a conference with 5,000 people in the room. What's the transition like mentally? Because a lot of people have been in the small room, but they dream of this 5,000 person room, and they're like, oh, I can't wait to do it. But it's a different. I believe it's a different animal. What's your thoughts?
Uh, it is a different animal, and you have to find what's similar. Here's the two things are happening at the same time. You're really only talking to one person. You're getting your message, your ideas, your point of view, your message for the moment. You're getting it in my opinion, I think of it as getting it into the hearts and heads of one person. I'm just doing it now on a larger scale. And so there is a dial up that I turn up for a 5,000 seat experience, or, for performing at the Apollo versus performing on a stage where or performing in a workshop or speaking in a workshop. There is a dial up and making myself a little larger so that the person, I hate to say, the person in the cheap seats in the back, the person at the top of the balcony, as well as the people in the orchestra pit, get the whole experience. So I am ever present to speak to the whole audience. And that was something I had to learn and expand too. I've had great speakers, great comedians say, make sure that you reach all the way to the back of the audience. So maybe you have to exaggerate your movements a little bit. Maybe you have to, and I'm not saying don't be you, but just do whatever you can to dial it up so that every person gets a piece of you. But make sure that you're also connecting to that one person. There's going to be one person, at least one person in the audience who will be moved, touched, and inspired and affected by what you say. And it may be that they actually disagree with what you say, and that's okay too. So there is a dial up. And the other thing too is that I don't know if a lot of people talk about doing whatever self-care you need behind the scenes. So before any talk, I'm going to need my rest. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to fluff up and put on the lashes and whatever that is, whatever it is for you, whoever you are. But to make sure that you take good care of yourself and you know what you need in order to take care of yourself. So is it to hydrate and do all the things that physically you need? Is it also to explain to the meeting planner that when I'm done, I need a moment off stage to just be quiet, just so I can gather myself. So taking care of those things in advance, if you can, means that you are then present to be able to make a bigger performance and to make that transition. And like I said, it's really is a combination. It goes back to a combination of speaking to that one person as you speak to the entire audience. And body language is important. I learned there's some performers who stand in one place, and that's fine. My style is to move around so that everyone sees and has a taste. And I want everyone to feel as if I've looked in their eye at least one time. But that's my style. You might be someone who doesn't enjoy that, or you might be someone who the lights are so bright in your eyes that you can't, especially a stage that large, 5,000 seat, event, you may not be able to see everyone, but that doesn't mean that you don't make an effort to make everyone feel connected to you.
No, that's a big deal. And you said you started in high school running for class president. That's a lot of practice. How important was repetition, especially as a comedian and as an actor? Like, we think that, in Living Color, they just making it up while they up there. No, I don't think so. I don't think that that's what they're doing. Living Single, they wrote that before they went on the thing. How much of a role has practice played in
Yeah.
your career?
Practice and rehearsal are vital. And for me, someone who enjoys improv and enjoys being in the moment, what happens is rehearsal and practice and preparation leave freedom for me to be able to play. Now I know what I'm going to say. I know how I want the audience to feel. I know the format. I know what what I want to deliver. And now that means that I have a little wiggle room if something happens in the moment, and I can grab it. I was just speaking at an event in Seattle 3 days ago, and I had prepared my talk, and I had my talking points and how what I had allowed. And I asked the audience a question, and the women began to answer. And one woman, I think the question I had is, what's magnificent about you? What's a magnificent gift? Well, I didn't know that this woman was going to stand up and go, I'm an incredible singer. And I was like, I've got enough time to say, well, would you like to sing for the audience? I didn't know she was going to leave her seat and come up to the front and grab my microphone and sing. I was like, I got to play with this. What am I going to do? I haven't rehearsed that. How could I rehearse that? But it created this moment where she got a chance to stand in front of an audience and sing. I got a chance to pretend that I was her backup singer, and a magical moment that could not have happened other than I was prepared for anything. And so I'm a fan of rehearsal. I'm a fan of preparing. I do think that you don't become so rigid that you don't leave room for the magic to happen, or leave room for, listen, we've all spoken on a time when the microphone went down or the lights flickered or something happened. So be prepared, but be uh, ready for anything. And you have to find that balance that works for you. And the speakers I've enjoyed the most are the ones that felt like, even though I've heard the speech before, like you and I know speakers that we know their thing, but they make it feel as if it's the first time they're doing it. And that's a skill. You have to make the audience feel as if you're really in the room with them. And I want to speak to that in case this doesn't come up. One of my secret sauce things is to make an audience feel as if I know who they are. So I will always have a talk with the meeting planner beforehand. I want to know from their perspective what they want their audience to take away, what they want them to feel. And so even though I may talk about the same topic, I will tweak things that lets the audience know that I'm in the room with them. And if I don't have an opportunity to do that to the degree that I want to or can, I will say something or do something that lets the audience know I'm in the room with them. So let's say it's a dinner, a gala dinner, and I'm hosting or speaking or whatever, to talk about the listen, the chicken is one of two ways in every gala you've ever attended. It's either really dry or really moist, and that's a surprise. So if you call that out or talk about how wonderful the wait staff is, or like, I was trying to get an extra one of those desserts, weren't you? Then the people are like, oh, she's in the room with me now. Or if you talk about the CEO, like, oh my goodness, when he got up and spoke about his golf game, I was like, I don't play golf, but I want to, whatever it is, you find some little moment that everyone has experienced and you let them know that you've experienced it too. It then brings you into the moment. It brings you into the room with them. And so although you've prepared this speech and prepared this talk for them, it gives them a feeling of like, oh snap, she's here with me right now. And they feel as if it's just for them. And so those are some of the techniques that I do to rehearse, but also leave room to play.
No, I think that that's super duper duper important. Now, someone with your level of experience, we saw the good ones. We didn't see the bad outtakes and the things of that sort. When the microphone went off, or when you may have tripped on stage, or when you said the wrong thing. How does a professional recover from those types of things? Because we assume that it never happens to you guys, but we know it happens, but we just never get to ask you, how do you recover from an on-stage disaster of forgetting your speech or forgetting your line, a microphone going out? What simple tips can you give us for that?
Or in my case, a heckler. It's not fun when you feel as if you're losing control. Listen, as a speaker, you get to have control. You know what you want to teach these people. You know what you want to share. You know how you want to inspire and motivate them. And then something goes awry. My way of dealing with it is to call it what it is, because the audience, most times, listen, maybe you're making a talk and they've never heard it before. They won't know you've made a mistake. You keep on going. You find your place again. I've lost my place and go like, what was I going to say? Oh yeah. Or I've asked someone in the audience, what was I saying just then? Yeah, that. And I let them help me get back on place. And that way they get to feel important, and you go, thank you so much. You're my new best friend. And then you just get back on track. I think that it makes you even more relatable, because there's someone in the audience going, I could never get up and do that. And maybe they have some message that they'd like to share with the world, but they think, what if I mess up? Now they see you mess up and they go, oh, well, that's how they recovered and it'll be fine. I think an audience is with you. I think one of the things I had to learn early on is that these are not my adversaries. I'm going to make them my friends, and they want to see me win. So if I make a mistake and stumble and come back, then it makes me even more human and more relatable. I'll laugh at myself and go, what did I just say? And they'll go, right then they're with you, and then you get right back on track. And so being willing to laugh at yourself, being okay with making a mistake, and knowing that you can recover and that the audience is there with you. They want you to recover and keep going, is a great thing. I've had, actual flop sweat on stage. Like, what is it? Why are my pits so wet? And just like, it is what it is. Don't wear satin blouse again. Now you know. And I've tripped on a stage, and you make a joke. You just laugh at yourself, I think, is the overarching answer. And the other piece of this, I mentioned heckler. There are people who, at least comedians I know, who become like, you want to fight that person. And I've gotten angry too. If there's a way to dispatch of someone who is an adversary in the audience, because here's what happens. There's times when someone's ego uh, uh, takes over because they wish that they were in your place. And so there's a way to, and this is technique, to no one in the audience wants you to stop. They actually want the heckler to shut up. That's my point of view. They want the heckler to stop interrupting you. And so if you can get the whole audience on your side to gently dispatch of the heckler, you may say something about their shirt, make a little joke, or say so, or even bring them in. Okay, so what did you want to say about that? You really think that? Great. And then turn it into a teachable moment. And so those are the moments that happen in the moment. But to see your audience as your friend and to be in the moment means that you can fix anything in the moment. That's my longer answer.
No, I think that that's good because, now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever seen a speaker get heckled. That may be a new life goal. I may have to start heckling speakers.
Or okay, so let me clarify that too. So they may not be a heckler, but they may be, so they may not be being adversarial, but they think they're helping you out. Yeah, that's why the so and so, or they think that they're, look at me, I'm the, big man on campus, or look at me, I'm the head chick in charge, and I'm used to being on stage. So that's why I say the ego usually will pop up. It may not be somebody who wants to be mean to you, but they think that they're being helpful, and so you just acknowledge that they're being helpful, and then move it along and put the focus back on you. So, oh God, you're going to start heckling speakers. Listen, it
It's
would be
gonna be
great,
great.
great
You, you
training.
know, you reminded me of something. When I was a kid and I would be in church, and you have somebody up there singing, and there's always somebody in the audience say, "Take your time," and that let me know they messed up. If they say "Take your time," they definitely hit the wrong note.
Take your time. Get it. You better hurry up and get it. Take your time. Let them use you.
Yeah, that means you done messed up. So
But as long as you remember, we're all in it together, and just maybe you deliver your message and off you go. It's yeah, and it's true. It's true.
that's gonna be my name on LinkedIn, Ron Story, the speaker heckler, and I'm gonna start going to conventions just to be like, "Boo!"
You're getting quite a kick out of this, Ron. Boo,
I'm
get
just
off the
imagining
stage.
it.
Yeah.
No, you gave some really good tips because I think um, being on stage is already stressful, right?
Yes.
And the more you can relax yourself and the environment before you go on the stage, you really can deal with just about anything. I always say, like, if I'm ever up and someone wants to hop in from the crowd, let's say, "Come on up, man. Here, you can have the mic. Come on up." And all of a sudden, they just back off because they really don't want all of that attention.
And
Yeah.
and I, before, and they made a fool. They didn't think they were making a fool out of themselves. Like, this is horrible. All right, thank you so much, and off you go back to your seat. Thank you. I'm going to also. This brings up something I want to share too, because I know this happens too. That I generally don't go into the room where I'm going to be speaking till about 15 minutes before. I don't want to see all the other speakers. Sometimes you're at a conference and you do, and sometimes you don't, and sometimes you have someone who's a hard act to follow. So I got a dose of this when I was doing stand up. I used to open for Sinbad, and Sinbad is amazing on stage and truly one of the best. He has the ability to take an audience and he leaves them so high up that whoever's following him, it really is a tough act to follow. But I had been on the road with him and I wasn't scared, and he had been giving me tips and I was fine. So we had an event where he had to leave early and I had to, perform. And I never tell this story. Spike Lee was backstage, and this is really early in my career, like the late 80s, early 90s. And Spike Lee said, I don't know how you're going to follow Sinbad. And I was like, shut up, Spike. Leave me alone. And so what I did was I went on stage and I just did me. And I'm speaking to any speaker who's ever followed, the mega name, the biggest name in the business, and somebody who left the audience just on a high. You get to go in and then balance the audience out. You bring them to a place where they're high. You bring them to a medium place, and then your job is to take them to the high that you were going to take them on. So I feel like I could follow almost anybody. If I followed the best in the business and Spike was like, I don't know how you're going to do it, I was like, shut up and let me do my thing. And even though I was new, the audience was kind enough to understand. And I think I called it out, like, how do I follow Sinbad? Well, he's my boss and he had to go catch a plane. So let me just do my thing. And so I say to those of us who, get spooked or get freaked out by somebody who spoke, who just like destroyed the room, your job is to go and do the same thing. Bring the audience back to a level and then take them wherever you were planning on going. And it happens in the moment, but you can do it and just still deliver what you were meant to deliver.
I would have walked right out there and said, coming to the stage, Spike Lee. And let him follow Sinbad. And then I would have followed Spike Lee.
Actually, what he said was, I cleaned up the story a little bit. I overheard him saying, I don't know how that girl with the weave is going to follow. He really didn't even speak directly to me. He was like, I don't know how that girl with the weave is going to follow Sinbad. And I was like, I heard you. Thank you. I'm gonna do my best. And who knows? And when I got off stage, I was like, well, he gave the thumbs up. So it was all done in that Brooklyn swagger fun. I'm from Brooklyn too. It's all good.
So you bring up a good point about stage presence and audience control, right? And being able to control the environment. A lot of speakers unknowingly are thermometers. The feeling of the crowd controls their energy. So if the crowd is hyped, they go out with too much energy and they get exhausted. Or if the crowd is down, they don't know how to ease them up. They try to bring them up too rapidly, right? How do you bring that thermostat to that crowd like you did having to follow Sinbad and kind of give Spike Lee the index finger, not the middle finger, but the index finger?
I did it. I don't even think he remembers that moment. That's a good point. And I just touched on it a little bit. So there's a thing that you've heard comedians do 1,000 times. And I'm not saying that this is what you do, but you find your version of this. If you remember watching Def Jam back in the day, almost every comic would come out and go, how about a hand for all these beautiful ladies? And that was a way, I don't advise doing that. I don't, think that that's the way to do it. But that was a way of resetting the room. You immediately get an audience on your side and in a space that you're, because of course, who's not going to clap for all the beautiful ladies in the house? Now, whether or not they were going to go on to diss all the ladies in the house is another story, or to talk bad about them is another story. But I think to remember what I was saying a moment again, that you let an audience know that you're in the room with them. So what you can do if the room is super, super high, you can reset the room by going, let's give another hand to Ron's story. Wasn't he amazing? Oh my goodness. I learned so much. I shocked. Oh, this is amazing. Now it's my turn, y'all. So, and then what you do, like I said, you bring the audience to a level where you want them to be, because you know that you've prepared to take them to your highest level, to the place you want them to be. And so I think it's important to reset the room, to acknowledge what's been going on and reset the room for your taste. And your audience will come along with you. And you do have to manage your magic. So I like to say, manage yourself. And like I said, some of the self-care stuff is what we talked about, but you will have to manage yourself. And I've actually had that experience where I've gone out on stage like so high, like, I gotta bring it down because I ain't gonna last my 45-minute talk. So manage yourself and, like I said, pay attention to what's already happened in the room, reset the room for you, and then off you go.
I think that 100% is like easy advice for people to follow, but it's something we don't think about, right? When you and I were in Denver, we had an opportunity to go to the NSA conference, and I thought I was being slick. I'm like, I don't even have to speak because I don't want to. I want to bring someone else that'll do it, and it'll be so much easier. And the first thing we do is they say, coming up next is Ron's story. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I had to go up there. I'm like, I don't even know what to say. I wasn't even prepared to say anything. I'm thinking this is going to be a panel, and I'm in front of those folks, and I'm like, well, if you are who you say you are, you had better be ready, right? So, how do you deal with that type of improv when someone like calls you to the stage or gives you an opportunity? They say, "Oh, I didn't know you were going to be here this weekend. You want 20 minutes?" How do you deal with that? Because I was like, let me just not say nothing stupid. you know? You know?
Well, sometimes on my way, and I've had that happen before, or somebody brings you a microphone on my way to the stage, on my way to the microphone. If I've had a little moment to go and make a note inside my phone, like what are three things I want to leave people with, right? I know that I can make them laugh. I'll find something to make them laugh. I know that I can find something to make them think. And maybe I can ask a powerful, like reflective question, like put it back on them. What do y'all think about so and so? And get them talking to each other. So I think if you think in terms of threes, what are three things that I can quickly deliver? Like I said, something to make them laugh, something to make them think, and something to make them question. All right, thank you very much. Good night. And I will say this: almost every time that has happened, I've forgotten something I should have said, or something I could have said, or something I could have promoted. Like, oh, I forgot to tell them to watch such and such. But you just have to trust that the universe is on your side, and that moment of shine has been placed on you for a reason, and that someone in the audience will see, feel, experience something magical that wouldn't have happened if you didn't get up and speak. So just have to concentrate on that. By the way, as a side note, that's also something, another tip that I do for every talk. I go in with the intention that there are at least 2 to 3 more opportunities in the audience. So either there's someone who is running a convention 6 months later and wants me to speak, or there's a potential client and says, hey, you mentioned something about you publish books. Can I talk to you about that? That there's 3 more opportunities in the audience or in or backstage that I didn't know was going to happen. And so if I walk into it as if there's something else for me in this room besides wowing the crowd, then I can't even tell you how often that becomes true because I set that intention. So I just wanted to throw that in there as a cool tip to use.
No, I think that that's huge because you can to be able to book a meeting from a meeting or book a conference from a conference is, we call it the multiplier, like the referral multiplier. If I can get one gig that turns into 4,
Oh,
that's well worth it.
yeah, fantastic. Yep.
So I
And by
have good.
job, you did a great job being put on the spot because you know your product, you knew the room you were in, you knew who the people were that you were there to inspire, and no one would ever know that you were like, I don't want to talk. I mean, maybe you're more introverted than some. And by the way, I'm an introvert too. Maybe you and I are more introverted than most, but nobody would ever know you got up and you did the job.
No, I appreciate that. When I was walking by Lethea and who introduced me, and I'm like, I ain't supposed to say nothing. Like, she was like, "You'll be fine. Go ahead, you can do it." And people don't realize a lot of times when people hug somebody on stage, they giving you advice.
Go ahead, child.
Yeah, like you like, hey, why you call me up here and nobody can hear it, but you like, hey, yo, I'm not supposed to be. She like, you'll be fine. Just go ahead and say thanks and all these other things. And so I appreciate her for putting me on the spot and encouraging at the time.
But that moment also, Ron, from my perspective, is a testament to how much she respects you, how much she respects your product, And she just wanted more people to know. So even though you were like, I don't want to do that, Lethea was like, no, Ron, come on up here. Let people see you, experience you. And I love you. And I want you to get all the accolades you're meant to have. And so I think it was done out of love. You know, there's some people who will do stuff as a gotcha, but that was done out of love. And you could feel it for
Oh no,
sure.
no, it definitely was. I no harm or no foul from Lethea. So
Yeah.
I have another question for you.
Yes,
So
sir.
I know a lot of people who are speakers, it's a transitional career, right? It's
Mhm.
someone who did something for the first part of their life or the first and second sessions of their life, and then they transition over into speaking, right? I know that's part of what has happened with you also. You had the television career and the comedy and the other things, and you've made these transitions seamlessly, right? And then now I think you're going back into TV again with some
Mhm.
other things. I can't talk about it, but I know you got some cool stuff you're working on. How does someone make that transition and not drop the ball, right? Because I
Mm,
think speaking is that transitional sport where if it doesn't happen right away, we think it's not for us.
right. That's good. So I didn't explain my origin story that speaking became a transition for me because I wasn't working. I wasn't, after Living Single got canceled, and I did some jobs, but not enough to really sustain me in the beautiful home that I had chosen. Pay the mortgage. I would say pay the mortgage, pay the car note, and be able to buy some hair. And so, those paychecks started to dwindle a bit. And so speaking became a great transition because I could take my gifts, skills, and talents as a performer and just transfer them here, make sure I had a message and something powerful to leave the people with, and then off I went. And so there's a couple of things here is that you have to stay with it. You have to find your why, find your reason why you really want to do this. At first, it was like, well, I'll try speaking. And then I realized that it scratched an itch for me. I was getting to perform. I was getting to connect with an audience. I was getting a chance to deliver a message. Often, many of my comedy bits worked beautifully into speaking bits because what I did was I attached a lesson to the comedy bit, right? And so couple of things that you do is you have to love it. You have to love the connection that you make with the audience and be really committed to your why and committed to the people whose lives you want to transform with your speaking. The other piece is to develop products that enhance your speaking. Develop products that you can sell at the back of the room if we're still doing that, right? Or products that you can sell, digital products. So to take your knowledge, your expertise, and your gifts, put them in your talks, and then invite people to work with you more deeply. And so that way you get to now be a speaker and a teacher, and that they get to blend with each other. Once I was in as a speaker, the first product I created was a book so that I could then have a bigger impact at the end of my speaking, and so that someone could take home a physical reminder of the time that I spent with them in that room. And so to develop all of it at the same time, or to, start your speaking and then start thinking about the products and offers you want to create that will really enhance. And there have been times when I have made a fee as a speaker, but made so much more with the products that I created. And so then speaking became a way to share the gifts and talents I had for the audience, the offers that I had. And so then it became, I can't give up the speaking because sharing the message is the way that I'll share the offer. And so I think if you think of it as a full on business and create these ways that you have other ways for people to connect with you, it will create even more meaning for your speaking. And so that's what I have to offer there.
No, I think that that's incredible, but because I think that that transition is difficult for some people, right? And when you're leaving a corporate world where you have all of this esteem, and then you come into speaking, and you're a rookie, and they're like, wait a minute. Like you know your stuff, but you know the knowledge, but you may not have the skill at that point in time. And I think a lot of the tips that you gave today should help people to overcome those things, right? It'll help them to build better connection. It'll help them to improv a lot better if they're caught off guard. If they have a heckler in the crowd like me, I'm coming to heckle some of y'all who watching. Y'all don't know it, but I'm gonna boo you like 3 times. You know,
Take your
it,
time.
that's it. Take your time. Let them use you. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that the tips that you gave today have been incredible, especially for new speakers that may have been an expert in something else, but they're looking for these like things that are kind of how do you say it, nuanced, that nobody talks about, right? I think a lot of times we get these big grand things, but not the nuances. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, the other thing I was going to say is you got to practice too. You got to practice and you got to play. When I was first starting as a comedian, I decided that I wanted to be a prop comedian. I wanted to have props on stage and pull out things and show things. And I quickly discovered that A, I'm too clumsy to keep it together. B, I forgot to leave the rubber chicken at home or whatever the thing was. And it was like, I just need to find my way and find my audience and find my voice, I should say. And so I think it's really important to get clear on your branding and your branding message and what your point of view is. Are you, sort of angry and surly, not angry, but like your way of looking at life is sort of surly or stoic or goofy or serious, or, you talk a lot of technical talk, like really find your jam and then just dial it up, keep dialing it up and practice and play and get into communities of other speakers, which is what I know you're creating here with Speaker Hub. Get into the space of it and just keep playing until you find your magic, and then elevate it and keep refining, and keep uh, getting better. Even the best, they become the best by working it and getting better and take your time with it and believe in the message that you have to deliver, and don't see it as a means to an end, is what I was saying earlier, that it's, yeah, this speaking transition. It's like, don't leave it. You're always, listen, if you're an entrepreneur or wantrepreneur or an author or a business owner, you are a speaker. You are the voice and the face of your brand. And who better than you than to deliver that message and to be very, I would say, reverent, and there's almost a sacredness in knowing that the message you are uniquely designed to deliver is meant to be heard, and somebody's waiting for you to deliver it.
I think you hit a huge point that now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, every good comedian that I know has their own point of view, right? They may
Right, right.
cover the same topic, but they look at it from a different point of view. And you're like, oh man, I like the way Chris Rock talked about this, or what's the one guy, Bill Burr. His perspective on this is totally different than, you know, someone else, right? And you're like, oh man, I get it. So, as an entrepreneur, how does someone find their point of view? Because their point of view really is their brand. Would you agree or no?
Mhm. Yeah, your point of view is your brand, but your message should be a your point of view and your message or your values um, can be expressed through your message and through your brand. So if you go to see Bill Burr, he's going to be sort of pretend surly. I hear he's actually a sweetheart. He's going to laugh at himself. He's going to laugh at the world. He's going to laugh at the way we relate to each other, and you know what you're getting when you going to see him. And so I would say to anyone starting out, or anyone, no matter what stage you're in, be really clear in what it is you stand for. Be really clear in your way of being, so that the audience, because here's the thing, the audience wants to connect with you. And like you said earlier, they're like, I don't know you, but I know someone just like you. I can relate. I may not even like you, but I get who you are. And so if you just dial that up and be the youiest you that you can be, I think that's a Dr. Seuss phrase, be the youiest you, so that people can immediately go, I get it. Now, you get a chance to also surprise people if you want to. You get to, throw them off guard if you really, really want to. But start out by knowing what your values are, knowing what your message is, and infusing that into your brand, and infusing that into the way that you present yourself. And you can't lose that way. You couldn't lose, because people will get on board really quickly. And you'll self-select yourself for certain opportunities and events, and you'll deselect yourselves for others. I'm never going to get hired to speak at, I don't know, what's the motorcycle gang? I'm likely not going to get hired to speak at, at, what are the Hell's Angels? Like, they're not going to speak. Not that I won't have a message for them, not that I don't have something cool to say, but they likely won't hire me because I don't fit the brand. um, uh, but you get to choose what that is and stand in that and keep playing with it until you find it. Like I said, like I did with the props, or like I did, I was going to be there was a point where I thought, do I want to curse and be a little naughty on stage? I was like, I can't maintain that for a whole show. I'm not going to even touch it. Let other people do.
No, I can't imagine you being Carrot Top. Can you? I can't imagine you pulling out a suitcase with all this Carrot Top stuff.
I tried. It was because I had to remember when to do the thing and pull the thing, and like, I'm just going to talk to the people.
No,
Yeah.
that makes sense. So I want to ask you one last question, because I
Yes,
think that
sir.
this is really important. What's your oldest joke? You don't have to tell it, but what's a joke that you used a long time ago that still works today? And I'll tell you why I'm asking this, because I think it's a really good point.
It may not be my oldest, but it's I'm going to leave this interview and think of something I could have said, something else I could have said. But once I started getting to a certain age, I started talking about menopause and hot flashes on stage. Oh God, there's so many I want to do. There's so many I want to do. Okay. So this one, that there are the seven dwarfs of menopause. I hope I remember all of them. Grumpy, sleepy, itchy, bitchy, sweaty, something is something. I can't remember the whole thing. And it makes the audience go, did she just say that on stage? So that might be one of them. I also have talked a lot about dating younger men. I don't want an old man because you have to talk to them and chop up their little blue pills, and I don't have the time. So that, so that's it. I'm trying to think as soon as we get off this call, I'm going to think of something else that is old, but still it slays every time. But tell me the reason why you asked.
Well, because a lot of new speakers think they have to write a new speech for every event, right?
Yeah, no,
And instead of
no.
telling the things that work, coming up with a signature talk on their idea, how important is it to have signature go-to modules or something as a stage performer?
That's okay. That was you walked me right into that. That is great. So as a performer, you have your act, you have your set bits that you do. And there's a point where you're just like, I don't want to do that bit anymore, but it's a killer. It's going to knock them out of the park. And then what you do is you then begin to surround those signature talks with new content or new material, or you stretch out the idea, right? So the first time I did the menopause joke about itchy bitchy sticky, whatever it was, and just leave me the hell alone. I think that was the last dwarf. Then I was able to add on, but I do like younger men, and I let my younger men start to fan me or whatever it is. And so you get your core pieces, you perfect them, because okay, here's the thing. So you know how you said that Lethea brought you up on stage and you weren't expecting to go, and I told you what I do is I think of three things I want the audience to do. Sometimes when I'm on my way up to the stage and grabbing the microphone, I will pull out one of those old bits, like something I know is a crowd pleaser, something I've said 100 times. So that means I already have the rhythm. I know how it's going to work, and it lands. And so I would say it's so important to have your core content, and it is important to add to it so that it feels fresh for you, so that you don't seem so like, and then she said this, and then he said that every single time. Because like I said, I want an audience to feel that this is the first time I've said it to them. But I absolutely have some stuff I've been saying for years. And I'm 62 and I went into menopause in my 40s. So those are 20-year-old jokes. So thanks, Ron. Gee, you proof of concept, sir. Proof of concept.
No, this has been incredible. Is there anything else that we want to leave them with as we
Yeah.
transition?
I would say once again that if you're called to do this, then there's someone in the audience that's meant to hear your message, meant to hear your story. You know, storytelling is my jam. All my favorite comedians were comedians who told story and then weaved in, you know, joy and fun along the way. And so I love making my messages wrapped into the stories I want to share with others. And so share pieces of you, share your story, be authentic. And dial it up so that the audience sees themselves in you, and just stay attuned to what you're called to do. If you're called to do it, then it's meant for you to do. And you can improve it, you can adjust it, you can make it better, and you can make tons of money. You know, speaking kept me afloat when television stopped. And now I'm back doing shows. I have a recurring role on a soap opera. And it's like, oh my goodness, now I get to do it all. And I'm excited for the speakers that you're going to serve and help and create ways for them to get their messages out to even more. And I'm excited to come and play with you. And I hope that you're not in the audience coming and heckling me when you really start to do that. But
I don't want to fight with EJ, so I'm not gonna heckle you. I know your management team is a lot. He's a lot taller than me, so I'm gonna let that be. But
all
hey,
good. And
thanks
thank you
for
for
having us.
doing.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
sharing with us. You know, this has been really great. Any last final words?
No, download my goodie that I have for you. It's the Captivating Story Igniters. Like a lot of times speakers don't know, well, what stories do I tell? I've given everybody this freebie that's like over 60 prompts to get you thinking about new stories, and this will help you craft even more content. So you've got your core content that you're going to teach and then or share, and now you're going to have even more. So enjoy with my pleasure, with my compliments. Enjoy the Captivating Story Igniters. I'm super excited to get that in people's hands.
No, this is
Thank you,
cool.
sir.
Thanks so much, Kim. I really appreciate it.